All right, the retail burr. Many people talk about the burr, the buy, repair, rent, refinance, repeats. Most people talk about it from a multifamily perspective. The reality is you can do it with any of the asset classes, and I'm going to show you a retail example here. But personally, I switched to retail because it's a lot easier to find deals. There's a lot more opportunity. It's a less crowded space. But this is a retail property that I purchased in Florida, in Hudson, Florida, right outside of Tampa. And this is what this thing used to look like. And then this is what it looked like by the time we're done with. This is what it looks like now, although it has some tenants in here. So the tenants have started to move in. But this was a huge value add. So with burrs, you gotta make the property worth more. And you gotta force appreciation. You gotta buy it for one amount, stabilize it, and now it's worth this amount, a lot more. And now when you refinance it, you can pull a decent chunk of your money out, hopefully all of it, but not always. So I'm gonna dive into the numbers, talk about the deal, and this is an example of how you can do the burr in a less crowded space. So I saw this property, it was listed on the market for 399,000. So I looked at it, liked it, got it under contract. I ended up getting it under contract for 300,000 because I knew there was a lot of repairs. And then it turned out there were a lot of repairs. Like, this is probably the most colorful inspection report I've ever gotten in my life. This property was not in good shape. The roof was pretty much shot. There was mold remediation that needed done. The water heaters were gone. There was rusted metal everywhere. And it was like a very colorful inspection. It was such a colorful inspection that the inspector did a whole different report just for the roof and the rotting stuff and the gutters and all that. This is just mostly interior stuff. So I got this property, got with some contractors, and I was like, okay, how much is it going to cost to clean this thing up and get it ready for tenants? I had an original contractor. Boy, did that not go well. He started doing the work, and then there were a lot of issues. He said he was done with the roof, and we were going to move on to the interior. And then next time it rains, there were a bunch of leaks that were still going on. The roof was in bad shape, but not bad enough where it needed to be replaced. So we just put on, a TPO layer that should have stopped the leak, but this guy did not do a good job applying it. He cheaped out on the amount of TPO he put on there, so there were still quite a bit of leaks. Ended up firing him, threatening to sue. It was a whole nightmare because I'd already paid him for the roof work, but we ended up getting a decent chunk of that money back. But burrs aren't easy, especially the repair part. Buy, repair, rent, refinance, repeat. The repair part is actually pretty tricky, especially if you, like myself, I do long distance burrs. So I got to manage this contractor from California. Yeah, I'll fly out a couple times, but for the most part, it can be pretty tricky to manage these contractors long distance. But anyway, after a really long road, it took about a year to finish cleaning this building up. I ran the numbers at about 6 months, but it took about a year to clean this building up. And then we eventually got it looking like this. Not this. That was what it looked like. Then we eventually got it looking like this. The cleaned up the interiors, got it ready for tenants, switched out some of these ceiling tiles, redid the parking lot, landscaping, and it was ready for lease. So we put it on the market. Took about 6 months to fill out 3 out of the 4 tenants. And then eventually we're about to get the building filled up, and then we're getting ready for the refinance. So now this building, we bought it for 300. Now it's worth about 800. We were able to get rents at 16 bucks a square foot. Let's dive into the numbers here. So this is my original underwriting. I had the stabilized likely at 14 bucks a square foot, the stabilized optimistic at $16 a square foot in rents. So we ended up getting those 16 bucks a square foot plus triple nets, which is the other income here. So after all is said and done, we got seller financing 200K. So it's 300K, put 100K down, 200K in seller financing, also put 150,000 into the building. Okay. So as you can see right here, this property, big spread. You're all in, purchase it for 300, put 150 into it. You're all in for 450, and now it's worth about 800 after a nightmare of repairs and renovations and cleaning the building up. But now it's time for the refinance. Time to pull the money out and go move on to the next deal. So this is what we're looking at. So we had the net operating income in year 3, which is where we're about to go into, is going to be 65,000, 64,000 and change. Market cap is about an 8, which I think is pessimistic. I think it's going to come in a little less than an 8 cap, probably high 7s. So the appraised value is going to be right around the 800,000 mark, plus or minus maybe 20, 25K. I'm going to do a 65% LTV. For a couple reasons, I'm not maxing out the LTV. Number one, I'd still like to keep some of the cash flow. I don't want to completely take it down to the minimum debt service coverage ratio, which I'll dive into a second here. And I want to be able to keep more of the money. I'm anticipating a 7.5% interest rate on this refinance, 20-year amortization. So my new loan, my old loan is 200,000, seller finance, interest only payments. My new loan is going to be for 519,000. Okay? So after refinance costs and paying off the old loan, I'm going to pull out $300,000. So I put in 264 all in, down payment, closing cost, renovating cost. About 265,000 was the money that was invested into this deal. And I'm going to pull out about 300 from my refi. So that means I'm getting 100% of my capital is being returned to me, plus about $40,000 on top of that. So it seems like a great deal, and it is. Don't get me wrong, it's a great burr. But something I'd like to point out here is the cash flow is getting decimated. I mean, that's how burrs are. You're typically cutting the cash flow in half, if not more. So once the tenants all settle in, they have a free rent period while they get their business situated. There's an insurance company, there's a smoke shop, there's a pawn shop. So once they finish getting situated, the property is going to be making maybe about 3,800 a month in net free cash flow. And this is actually net free. So this is total rents collected plus triple nets. This is all the money that's going to go out as expenses. This is what is the net operating income, 65,000 plus, with the seller finance, I'm paying him 20 grand a year interest only on this. So I'd be making about 44,000 a year in cash flow. Now, when you refinance this deal, so you're going to take it to a local credit union, get a loan on it. The debt service, as you can see, goes from 20 grand a year to 50 grand. Now, there's a couple reasons for this. This was an interest-only loan, so the debt service is lower. I'm only paying them 20 grand a year for the loan. That's going to go up to 50 because this is going to be an amortizing loan. The new loan will be interest and principal. As you can see here, I'm only paying interest. Well, with the new loan, I'm going to be paying principal and interest. And the new loan is going to go up to $50,000 annually. That means I'm going to be making $16,000 a year in net free cash flow. So that's like, what is that, like less than 1,500, 1,300 bucks a month in net free cash flow. So by refinancing, I took a big hit to my cash flow, but I have 300 grand now to play with that I can go on and hit the next deal. Because we just finished stabilizing it, so I'm preparing for the refi, and I thought this would be a good opportunity. This is my first retail burr, so I thought this would be a good opportunity to share how you can do the infamous burr, although mostly known to be used on multifamily deals, but the exact same process works on retail, industrial, self-storage, mobile home parks. It works on all of them. So I'm going to pull out the 300K, and then I'm going to take that and go on to the next deal, and then the next deal, and the next deal. I actually got the money for this deal from a 10 unit in Ohio that I refinanced, stabilized it, refinanced it, pulled out 250, 270 grand, took that money, and that's the money I used for this deal. Now I'm going to stabilize this, take the 300 out, and I'm going to use that 300 for the next deal. So it's the same money being recycled deal after deal after deal. And yeah, there's not a lot of cash flow after the refinance, but I have another 3, 4, 5 buildings that I did the burr on that's each cash flowing a small amount. So look at it this way. It's essentially like a faucet, and the faucet's flowing out. At 44,000 after I finish stabilizing, it's flowing. Now I turn the faucet down, so now it's just kind of like a constant drip. But if I have 10 faucets with constant drips, I still have a whole lot of water. That's the idea. Now you could only own 2 or 3 of these and not refinance them and make the 45 grand on each one of them, or you could have 15 of these that are each making 16 grand a year. That's the idea. You decide what is your style of investing, and that decides whether or not the burr is a good fit for your investment strategy. Am I looking to have 2, 3, 4 properties that are each cash flowing 30, 40, 50 grand, and now I have a comfortable lifestyle? Or are you trying to build an empire? Personally, I'm trying to build an empire. I'm trying to continue recycling the money, buy more deals, and completely grow a portfolio. So that's the idea. This is a retail burr from beginning to end, from this to this, and now we're going to be going through the refinance. We're going to be getting about a 7.5% interest rate, and now we're going to own a property with no capital in anymore, $0 in the deal, and we'll have the 300,000 or the 260 plus 40, so the 300,000 back, tax free and a bank account so we can go out and go after the next deal. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. This is your classic retail burr. If you're struggling to find multifamily burrs, I strongly suggest you open your horizons and start looking for other asset classes like retail, industrial, self-storage, and start looking for those opportunities elsewhere. Follow along. I'm going to be going over the deals I do and how I'm building my portfolio. And I hope you guys like the video. Subscribe, do all of that, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.